What's up, guys? My name is Justin. Welcome back to the channel today. We are back to talk more about iRacing and the Nurburgring 24 hours that has just concluded. So, the Nurburgring 24 for 2025 is in the books, but unfortunately, the top split has been shrouded in controversy at the hands of Team Redline. Just a brief synopsis of what happened. I was busy spotting my team while this was going down, but it read the social media posts and some of the outlash that came from this as it was developing and after it happened, and then kind of what happened after that in terms of what iRacing did and whether or not I think it was fair or foul. So, very briefly, the iRacing 24 Hours of the Nurburgring is an event that takes place in May every year, mimicking the real life Nurburgring 24 Hours. And the Nurburgring is a little bit different as a special event because the Nurburgring's minimum ride height, because of the abrasiveness of the track, is 50 millimeters, where it's usually like 30 millimeters at most other circuits, if I'm understanding GT3 regulations correctly. And the way that iRacing works currently, for some reason, not exactly sure why, is that wet tires are taller than taller being a general term than dry tires. Why? I'm not exactly sure. But so when you put wet tires on, your car increases in height very, very slightly. I mean, we're talking literal millimeters here, but this is relevant for this. And so, what Team Redline elected to do after starting first, second, and seventh in the top broadcasted split was start the race on wet tires and minimum fuel to get their ride height as low as possible so that when they put four dry tires on and loaded it with fuel, they would have a handful of millimeters more efficient aero and bodywork. So what essentially happened was they, as soon as the pace car pulled off from the grid, which is on the long straightaway before you entered the last couple corners before the GP circuit of the Nurburgring, they pulled off to the side, towed, and then immediately took a full tank of fuel, which takes about a minute, minute and a half, and four fresh dry tires. So they were coming from the back of the field, would have to work through quite a bit of traffic to get there, but obviously they had 24 hours with this supposed ride height advantage to make up the time. And once this was realized what they were doing by some of the other pro teams and pro drivers, which for the record, I'm sure most, if not all, of the pro teams and pro drivers are aware of this as a strategy. I mean, those guys look to the ends of the earth for any way to find any advantage on the racetrack. And so I'm fully sure that some, if not all of them, were aware of what was happening immediately. But again, it's then in iRacing's court to decide how they're going to respond. So, anyways, they do this pit stop immediately, come out the back of the field with this ride height advantage now that their car is lower than technically pre-race regulations state it should be, because iRacing does not do post-race tech. If your car passes pre-race tech, you're good to go. And we saw this a couple years ago in Road to Pro qualifying. I watched Michael Cozy Jr.'s stream, and his team, Logitech G Altus, at the time, they were going to Dirt Bristol for Road to Pro. And so what they did was start out with I'm trying to remember. They start out with whatever the minimum tire pressures were in the garage that you could select, and then pitted very early in the race for the minimum tire pressure that you could change to in pit lane. So it was not a long enough race to need fuel, but what they did was they came in and changed their tires on pit lane so that they'd have more pace, and they basically had to wait for cautions and field spread to work them back through the field. But they had this advantage once they'd done this. To move forwards through the field, and they weren't penalized for that. It was thought of as ingenuity. They did during the course of the race. Anyone could have done the same thing, and it was not brought down in any way, and it was genius. And they end up running like 1, 2, 3 and whatever this Road to Pro split was at the time. And in my opinion, what did Redline Racing in with Red Bull, of course, Max Verstappen is a pretty prominent member of this team, is that they did it immediately. They started on the wet tires and um, like towed basically from the grid to be reset to pit lane, did a pit stop, and then rejoined the race with this advantage and started their race essentially a minute and a half or 2 minutes after everybody else had with this advantage. And my thought about this, as I thought about it yesterday after our race had concluded, and I was watching some of the highlights and things that were going on in the broadcasted split, was, well, why was this necessary? I understand that as an esports team, they're supposed to chase every single tenth of a second on the racetrack. And again, over a 24-hour race, that all adds up significantly. I did some rough math. And if it was worth 1 second a lap that's a big if. I have no idea how much it was worth, but let's say it was worth 1 second a lap over the course of a 24-hour race here. That's more than half a lap that they were going to gain. So they were well clear of needing to drive back through the field, obviously pending mistakes, pending weather, pending other issues, crashes, pit strategy, etc. But it was clearly an advantage if they were able to be worth 1 second a lap with this ride height thing. I'm not sure if that was the case or not, but that was just my perception. And so I thought about this a lot, and I thought if they're already starting first, second, and seventh, and they're probably the most notable iRacing, sim racing, esports team in the world right now, why take this risk? Why chase this if you're more than capable of winning straight up? I I don't understand the logic of we're in front, so we got to keep pushing the issue beyond what is accepted. Because again, I'm under the assumption that everybody knew exactly what was happening and they were going to get caught doing this. It was just a determination of whether iRacing thought it was fair or foul. And what ended up happening was Nim Cross, the iRacing chief steward, joined the session later on in the race and determined that they had violated a section of the iRacing Sporting Code 8.1.4, 8.1.1.4, and 8.1.1.9, I believe, which talk about bending the rules essentially for a competitive advantage and what's considered cheating, what's not considered cheating, and the spirit and the sport of iRacing in the iRacing code. And what they ended up saying was, if you guys continue after having done this, you will be disqualified from this event. So they, as far as I know, elected to withdraw their 3 cars immediately altogether. And so they knew what they'd done. They knew what had happened, and they knew the consequences and the risk of potentially doing this, of course. Um, and so there's been uproar on both sides from obviously Team Redline fans saying, "Well, what's wrong with it? Anybody could have done this. It's doable by iRacing. It's an error in their iRacing code, and it's something that obviously any other team could have copied and done with us, and we are just the ones that decided to take advantage of it. And I'm not sure if this is a viable thing to do at any other track, given that the Nurburgring is so long with such a long pace lap and run up, and the fact that the minimum ride height is so much higher at the Nurburgring. Maybe it's so much more of an advantage getting that lower ride height here than it would be at a Daytona or a Sebring or anywhere else. So I'm not, again, an expert on any of that, so I won't speculate. But they knew what the potential risks were and elected to try it anyways, which again, on one hand, I applaud because that's what you're supposed to do, is push the issue until caught and then you're really back. But on the other hand, if iRacing decides that you've pushed it too far and they park you, I'm not going to shed any tears over that. You're not supposed to cheat, quote unquote. But the determination is this considered cheating? Is this fair or is this foul? iRacing obviously in this instance elected it to be foul, penalized them as such, or threatened the penalization if they were to continue. And again, the Team Redline people, and they haven't put out an official statement that I know of yet, but the fans of that team are saying, well, anybody could have done this, but everybody else is saying, yeah, but you were already at the front. You're already the most recognizable team, the team to beat, arguably the top team in road racing, sim racing right now in the world. Why can't you just, if you're so good, why can't you just go beat these people straight up? And I tend to agree with that statement. I agree with both sides, to be honest with you, because again, I of course have been guilty of trying to find stuff while building setups that gives you an advantage, and as long as it passes iRacing Tech, in my opinion, you're good to go. The question becomes, when in the eyes of the steward, what is acceptable that, iRacing Tech says it's good, so it's good, versus iRacing Tech says it's good and you manipulate it in some other way, such as the towing from the grid. And so I wonder if they would have taken this strategy, run a lap on wet tires to start, and then all pitted on lap number one, if this would have been frowned on as such, and if it would have been considered genius or if it would have been considered blatant manipulation of the iRacing sporting code. And I don't know the answer to that. That's not what they ended up doing. I also don't know how much time they would have lost around the lap of the Nurburgring, which is like 16 miles and 170 corners. I don't know how much they would have lost running that lap on the wet tires. So I can't really make a clear determination of that. But in the end, they all 3 cars were threatened with disqualification and elected to park and withdraw, excuse me. So yeah, it's to be determined kind of what happens next. Whether iRacing is going to enforce these more strictly, implement live stewards for the top split special events that are broadcasted, whether they are going to tighten up some of the code and the rule book and do things to blatantly prevent this from happening by making it black and white, because this is definitely playing in the gray area, which again I understand and accept, but when someone plays in the area, in the gray area, and gets caught and gets penalized for it, you then have to not make it gray anymore. Once it's been established that people are living in that gray area, you have to go do something to make it black and white. So again, whether that be live stewarding, making a call at the time, or changing the rule book, or changing the way that iRacing tech is done, where you get teched at the end of a race as well as at the start. I don't have the answer, but I just wanted to give my thoughts very briefly about this whole situation and kind of share how I feel about it, given that again, this could be done by anybody. This could have been done by us in bottom split in the M2 or whatever. My team, I did not drive, of course, but this could have been done by anybody. And the question being then, is it fair or is it foul? And obviously, iRacing determined in this situation it was breaking the rules and acted as such. So I'm very curious to see how this works moving forwards. Again, obviously, I expect the pro teams to continue to push the issue, continue to try things, continue to outsmart the generally accepted rule book. And again, I don't think they have any regrets about trying this, because if it works out and they run 1, 2, 3, they all look like geniuses and it looks like the brilliant move of the year as far as sim racing. But given, hey Steve, given that um, Williams Esports is still kind of in hot water from a year ago at Daytona. I don't remember exactly what happened. I think they elected to use the aprons of the racetrack in Daytona. I can't remember if it was qualifying or race or both. So they elected to use the apron of the racetrack at Daytona in the top broadcasted split to obviously help their qualifying times and potentially race times. I don't remember the details. That was a long time ago. But yeah, I guess it now remains to be seen kind of what happens with this moving forwards. I mean, people still look at Williams Esports in the pro esports level with Hawkeyes and just watch their every move because they're perceived as cheaters. Redline, other than having an affiliation with Max Verstappen, has never really had that reputation, as far as I'm concerned, at least. Maybe there are more smaller issues that haven't been brought up, quite so publicly that they've done. But again, I think pretty much every team has been involved in that because you have to push the issue to compete in pro esports. So remains to be seen what's going to happen, what's going to be done exactly, but we'll just have to wait and see. Um, yeah, kind of what the synopsis is. If there are any changes made during Week 13 coming up by iRacing staff, if the rulebook changes, if the code of conduct in the Pro Series changes, or in the broadcast top split changes, and we'll just have to play it by ear. So I'd appreciate any feedback, any thoughts you have down below. Make sure you drop that like and sub down below as well if you're new. I greatly appreciate it. Plenty more great iRacing content coming out from me. And let me know your thoughts. Again, like down below, I want to have a discussion about this. Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's foul? Do you think it's good, bad? Do you like that they pushed the issue? Do you like that they were caught for pushing the issue and overstepping that gray area? How do you feel? And let me know down below what you think is going to happen from it. So I appreciate you all so very much, and I'm very thankful for it. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts. So that's going to be it for me. Till next time, as always, bye.